what's making the Ravens difficult is it's not all just run game trickeration. Lamar can also go 5 wide, and they run, some regular pass concepts. They run in mesh and return. And he's finding open guys for the most part much more accurately than he did last year. And then you have a play where he reels off another 47, 48-yard run that should have been a loss of 1.
How's our financial plan coming?
Super! Chris, any advice?
With Western and Southern, preparing for your financial future can be easier than you think. Favorite receiver?
Huh?
To get started, visit westernsouthern.com.
But also the Ravens pretty much stomped the Texans.
Ravens are great. Just from a Texan standpoint, we kept talking. Deshaun Watson had one of those disastrous games again, right? We've talked about his games under 60, under 50 PFF grade. And I think my criticism of Watson is always when he plays hero ball, but it's also the same thing that creates hero plays. We know about Deshaun Watson as an MVP candidate because he's breaking free from sacks. He's extending plays. That came back to bite him in 2 really bad ways in this game. He had 2, of the worst turnovers you'll see. One, he had over 9 seconds dancing around the pocket, ends up fumbling.
Yeah. And
then he had a play that was actually, he did this at Clemson in a game that they lost to Pittsburgh, which they never should have lost. He kind of just threw back across his body to, a defensive lineman or a linebacker. So just a really bad interception. His hero plays were not there. And, that was essentially the Texans offense right there. They're not efficient enough play to play that when he tries to play hero ball, they're negative plays instead of positive plays.
Yeah, they obviously didn't get helped out earlier by that pass interference call, but he made some pretty horrendous plays that got them into trouble early that they weren't able to dig themselves out of, or he in particular wasn't able to dig himself out of. And then, of course, you have the flip side of that, which is that they couldn't stop the Baltimore Ravens offense either. So this game got away from them in a hurry, which obviously puts you in an ugly position as well, and the whole thing just kind of fell to pieces.
We mentioned, a guy like Zach Cunningham would be key in the middle of the field, and he had he was around the ball. He had 7 defensive stops, but when it came to making plays in coverage, he got whooped a couple times by Mark Ingram, just lost in space a couple times. The Texans needed either a great performance from their defensive line, essentially their front 7 playing well to kind of protect their back 7, their front 7 to protect their secondary, and they were not getting that at all. The Ravens dominated up front with the offensive line again.
Yeah, so the Ravens offense has developed into something pretty scary at this point. So last year it was interesting because obviously it was the first half dozen games, first half a season of this Lamar Jackson led offense. And there was always this idea of, well, sure, but what happens next year when everybody has tape on this system and we understand how to defend it? And we saw, do you remember way back in the playoffs, we saw the Chargers, or was it week 17?
No, in the playoffs, the Chargers beat them in the wild card round.
Okay, yeah. So it was a playoff game, the Chargers, and they stopped this system by basically playing a bunch of safeties at the second level instead of big, slow defenders, right? They went run defense heavy with lighter bodies, which was this revolutionary plan to stop this offense. Now, weirdly, they then used the same plan to play the Patriots and just got blitzed off the field. But that, in theory, that is as close as we've had to this point of having a blueprint in how to actually stop this offense, right? Is you sell out against the run, but you do it using faster defenders so that they can actually have a shot of tackling Lamar Jackson in space as opposed to big lumbering linebackers that just don't have a prayer. We haven't really seen anybody be able to replicate that yet, which is, I think, concerning because the Texans went about as close as you're going to see anybody to doing that, and it really didn't work. Badly didn't work. And this is because Lamar Jackson has taken his game on to different levels. So now even if you do slow down the run game, he's able to take advantage of the passing plays that opens up, hit Mark Andrews over the middle for touchdowns. Now you have multiple problems to deal with. You don't have to just worry about a fast guy around the edge. You have to worry about what happens if you sell out to stop that. Yeah,
Lamar, this shows how dominant the Ravens offense is overall. Lamar did miss a bunch of throws early on. Then he comes in, because early on he had some open guys that he missed. hits a real decent touchdown, has the really nice touchdown to Mark Andrews, and then a couple of freebies. I mean, we talk about pass interference. One of his wide open in the flat, the receiver just sprinted directly at Benardrick McKinney in the middle and just set like an NBA pick on him, like 5 yards down the field, and that opened up, a wide open pass in the flat. But I think what's making the Ravens difficult is it's not all just run game trickeration. Lamar can also go 5 wide, and they run, some regular pass concepts. They run in mesh and return. I mean, and he's finding open guys for the most part much more accurately than he did last year. And then you have a play where he reels off another 47, 48-yard run that should have been a loss of 1, right? So that was the thing. Like, that's not the surprising part, right? Like, we expected that stuff to happen, the freakish runs and all that stuff. But when he's making a higher percentage of big-time throws up the seam and being able to just work the quick game every now and again, they can actually, even though he missed a few throws, they can't beat. It was a lot more good than bad from Lamar yesterday, and they can actually beat you kind of multiple ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think their offense has now reached that point where there is no longer there's no longer an obvious blueprint to stop them.
Yeah.
Right? Now, whether you can, there's a difference all the time between understanding what the game plan is to attack somebody and actually working with it. Right?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of quarterbacks out there where you may lose with that game plan, but you at least understand what the way of beating them is. There's Lamar Jackson, I think, has now entered that pantheon of quarterbacks like Mahomes, where I don't know what the game plan is. What are you supposed to do to come into a game against this Baltimore Ravens offense and stop them? I don't think now that the Chargers' plan from a year ago would work. I think they've moved on too much for that to still work.
Week 1, when they whooped the Dolphins, and it was like, oh, the Dolphins are terrible. I think the Dolphins all offseason were like, all right, we're just going to make Lamar beat us deep.
Yeah.
We're just going to we're going to play with no safeties.
They can do that now.
Whatever. And so I don't know. The Dolphins aren't great, obviously, but I think a lot of it was like they had this really one-sided game plan to take away the run game, and Lamar started hitting throws. And if he starts hitting throws the way at that higher of a percentage than he did last year, that's what makes him tough, and that's what he's been doing. And then, oh, by the way, they're killing you mathematically in the box.
Yeah.
So another dominant performance. The defense, though, man, they're tearing it up now too.
Yeah, I mean,
as far as just what they're doing on the back end and everything with those guys,
they've developed now into maybe the best team in the NFL. All the things that were weaknesses earlier in the season have been fixed. Like, you bring in a guy like Marcus Peters, and now you have a stacked secondary, and you've got enough quality around him that he can kind of get away with doing some of the freelancing stuff. Whereas when you're the number one corner getting targeted relentlessly, that can become a problem sometimes.
And I can't wait to go back and look at this, because we said before the season, loaded secondary, questionable pass rush. Matthew Judon has stepped up in recent weeks getting after the quarterback. Will they piece together? Tyus Bowser had 2 sacks. Not that he was great, but have they pieced together enough pass rush that this, is a viable formula? Build from the back to the front, and then you scheme it up with the Tyus Bowsers and Matthew Judons and other guys up front. Get just enough, but make sure you're covering well. And, that's why Watson's holding the ball long and not finding anywhere to throw and making mistakes.
I think pass rush is still potentially a concern. They're helped out. It wasn't in this game because, A, Watson has a tendency sometimes to cause too much of his own pressure.
Sure.
The Texans' offensive line is still not great. So those two things put together, you're able to look like you have a much better pass rush than you actually have. I think there will be concerns when this Ravens team faces an offense that can put up points and can pass the ball well, and that they're just not able to disrupt that enough. They may be good on the back end, but the lack of pass rush at some point could be a problem. Having said that, I don't know if it's going to be a problem until they hit the playoffs. Yeah. If you look at their remaining schedule, we've got the Rams struggling, the 49ers, sure, but that's not really that kind of team. Buffalo, the Jets, the Browns, and the Steelers. So they're going to get to the end of the season without facing another legit high-octane passing offense that doesn't have to worry about pass rush.
The 49ers one will be interesting.
Yeah, but even, it's not that kind of game, right? The 49ers don't play it that kind of way. But it may be, until they face like the Chiefs in the playoffs, say, until we even see that manifest itself, at which point we're not going to know how it's going to go.
They handled Russell Wilson and the Seahawks pretty well.
Yeah.
You want to get rid of me and get back to more great PFF YouTube content? All you have to do is push that button right there and subscribe. Thanks for watching.